Greetings everyone and welcome back to another tier list. Today we're going to be taking a look at the event ships, mostly just the tier 6 ships from the big three, summer event, winter event, anniversary event, although I did throw in the Mir Gagarin because we did get it pretty recently and it did come from an event, but otherwise I'm not including any other ships that might nebulously be included into an event ship category. So that does mean when everything is all done with all these tier lists, there may be ships that got left out completely because they didn't fall into any category, but I don't want to talk about that all day. Let's talk about the tiers before we actually get into the ships. S tier is like your highest priority for acquisition, either because it has a very good console trait, whatever, some kind of accessory thing you can put on your other ships, or it's just a really outstanding ship to fly on its own, and there's really not much you could possibly want more from it. And so those need to be pretty spectacular. There's going to be a bit of a repeat of the Lobby Store tier list, where the S tier ships are really only on there for accessories. And I just wanted to let you know that that is not going to be the case for all of these. We're going to have one for promo ships, we're going to have one for lockbox ships, we're going to have multiple different ones for C-Store ships because there's so many. And then when we get to those other tier lists, there's definitely going to be S-tier ships that are in there for the ship itself, and not just for something it comes with. But it is still not today. But it's the S-tier is not exclusively for consoles and traits and stuff. Ships can be good enough to get there on their own. A-tier ships are ships where there's really nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't quite get that upper god-tier echelon. B-tier ships are ships that are decent ships. They are what I would call good ships, but they have something wrong with them, or they have at least one significant deficiency that keeps it out of A-tier. C-tier ships are what I would say, let Dyatlov go ahead and say it that way, not great, not terrible. So they're not really good ships, but they're not bad ships either. They're just kind of okay. D-tier ships are where I would start calling them bad. D-tier ships are bad ships. They're just not good. And then for the first time, we have an F-tier. F-tier is absolute maximum dumpster. So let's go ahead and get started here with some winter ships. Since we have a lot of groupings here, let's do all the green ships first. So let's start with the Carrier, which I believe was the first winter event ship that was a tier 6. And that's going to go into D tier. It's a science carrier. It has fun pets. The frigates are actually perform pretty well, but science carriers in general just never do well. It doesn't have any kind of good specialization seating to save it or anything like that, so it's going to have to go in D tier. It's fun to fly, but it's definitely a bad ship. And then we'll look at the Resv Dreadnought Cruiser. I'm going to put that in B tier. It has a Lieutenant Commander command seat, and it has a hangar bay. It has the 8 weapon slots. It has pretty good hull shield modifiers. It's a pretty decent ship, but it does have a commander engineering, and that's going to bring it down a peg. Okay, now let's take a look at the Warship, the Chel Bolog, or whatever you say it. There's definitely going to be a lot of ships in this particular video I'm not going to pronounce right. It's an okay ship. It has a decent amount of universal seating for an event ship, especially for the year it came out. I don't remember exactly what year, but it's several years old at this point. And it has intel seating. It has at least a lieutenant commander intel seating, though, so you can get override subsystem safeties 3. Because it's a warship, it's got that warship mastery package and the good console seating and all that. So you can put a decent build on here. It's definitely not a bad ship. I would say it's a good ship. It's not, it doesn't have all the niceties you would want for an A-tier ship, but it's definitely not a bad ship. So I would say it is a good ship. And then we're going to take a look at the Raider, which is going to go in A-tier, and the reason why I put it in A-tier is, Raiders are always okay. Sort of like how science ships can only be so bad because they're science ships. Raiders can only really be so bad. They have the Raider flanking. They have universal seating. They can adapt to the meta. But, the trait on it, cold-hearted, is still really good. But it's not as good as it used to be. It used to be something that people used all the time. Now it's just sort of an occasional, once in a blue moon type scenario. People who are doing energy weapons who don't have anything better, or support builds or tanks might use it if they have pilot seating, because people aren't really doing aux to bat anymore. That's really the big thing that brings it down, is that Cold-Hearted can only trigger off aux to bat or pilot seating. Once upon a time, everyone was using aux to bat. It's kind of gone out of fashion now, so I think it's still a strong enough trait that it deserves A tier for that, but I'm not going to put it in S tier because I think it's just not as strong as it used to be. Okay, and that's the Breen ships, so let's go ahead and keep going with the winter theme, and when we got done with Breen, we started getting the Fekiri stuff. The first Fekiri ship we got was the Warship, and it has pilot seating, but otherwise there's nothing really special going on here, and so I'm going to put it in C tier. At least the Breen Warship had intel seating. Not really a big fan of the Fekiri Warship. And then we got the Dreadnought the Dreadnought Carrier, excuse me. I kept wanting to say Cruiser. And I'm going to put that in B tier. It's got the 2 hangar bays, and since it's a Dreadnought carrier and not a regular carrier, it has 7 weapons. It has a better console layout and stuff like that, and it happens to have Miracle Worker seating, so you could do a pretty decent energy weapon build with this, and the pets got buffed and or fixed, or however you want to look at it, and so this is actually a pretty decent ship. Kind of ugly looking. It doesn't turn real great, but it's an okay ship. I would definitely say it's better than a C tier. And then after that, we got the Gauchtard, or however you say it, carrier, and it's going to go to A tier, actually. Even though it's a science carrier, and those usually aren't good, it happens to have a better weapon layout than normal, and it has 4 forward weapons, and it has command seating. And so when you add all that up with the fact that science is good right now for unconventional systems and gravity well, it just happens to have really good seating, and it happens to have a good weapon layout for a carrier, so that it ends up getting an A tier just for torpedo potential. You could actually put a pretty decent torpedo build on this ship. Okay. Is that all of the Fekiri ships? I believe it is. So let's go ahead and move on from the winter event to the summer event. And we're going to start our journey there with the Worgen ships, which are just pretty much all terrible. We'll start with the best one, which is going to go in C tier, and that is the Escort. The only reason it even gets C tier is because it is an Escort, so it has those fundamental tactical things that are going to make it okay. All these ships just really kind of outdated, and they really feel outdated. You could do aux to bat on it, but that's not really in fashion anymore. And it's got a 4-3 weapon layout, and it's just, yeah, I wouldn't say it's good. Definitely does not meet the threshold for good. Okay, and then after that we get the Rin Codan Carrier. Now, I personally like this ship very much. It was on my favorite ships video. And it's just not a good ship. It's a bad ship. It has a commander engineering seat. It only has a lieutenant temporal. I was saying earlier that in order for a lot of specializations, in order for them to really be good, you need at least lieutenant commander. It doesn't have that. So you could use the lieutenant temporal for some unconventional systems, but you're not going to be able to get recursive shearing. It only has 6 weapon slots. It's not good. Okay, let's just leave it there. It's a bad ship. As much as I like it, it's a bad ship. And then we get to the reason why we have an F tier instead of just ending at D tier, and that is, I can't even pronounce it, the Gauchtard. I don't even know how you're supposed to say the name of it. It's so bad I can't even say the name. The name is terrible. The design is terrible. It's horrendously ugly. It has a 3-5 weapon layout, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad they tried something new, but, no one really wants to use it. It has terrible bridge officer seating. It's offensive in every way imaginable, and I hate this ship. I hate it, and unlike the Xindi Primate Dreadnought Cruiser that had a really good trait on it. This has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. So that goes straight to F tier. And then for summer event, after the Vorgan ships, we started getting the Rysian ships, or re-releasing the Rysian ships. And that started with the Corvette, and the Corvette comes with the Soliton Wave Impeller, which is generally considered the best experimental weapon in the game. There are situationally other better weapons, and sometimes builds can't use a lot of engine power, but for your general use case, this comes with the best experimental weapon in the game, so it gets S tier. And it's the only event ship to ever have a primary specialization version where you get the full command seat with the fleet version and all that. I kind of wish they had done that for more ships after this. I think when it happened at the time, we were hoping they might retroactively allow us to get fleet versions of the old event ships and upgrade them to full command, or full commander, I mean, so full commander level seats. That never ended up happening, but it was a cool one-off, and it has a really great weapon on it. So then after that, we got the Rysian Cruiser. No, we didn't get the Rysian Cruiser. We got the Science Vessel, and that's also going to go in S tier. And what's frustrating about this one is that there's currently no way to obtain it if you don't have it, and I'm one of those people who doesn't have it, and it's been well over a year. They have not added it to Mud's Market. They have not added it to the Phoenix Prize Pack. They haven't added it anywhere. And it comes with the Neutronic Eddy console, which is really good, and I'm really hard up to get my hands on it. It also has a pretty good trait, which is basically like a second version of Spore-Infused Anomalies. So I badly regret not getting this, and I've definitely got my finger on the buy button as soon as they add it. So that's two solid S tiers for the Rysian ships, far away beating out everything that came before it. But then we get to the Cruiser, and what do I do with the Cruiser? I think I'm going to put that in C tier. It has a Lieutenant Commander Temporal, so you can do Recursive Shearing 1, and you can get a decent beam overload build on it, but otherwise it's nothing really special. It is saddled with a Commander Engineering seat, so it's kind of peppy for a cruiser. It has a better turn rate and all that than you would expect. It's a fun ship, but there's nothing special about it, really. All right, and then after the Rysian ships, that I think is it for summer. So now we come to the anniversary ships. And, oh no, I'm mistaken. I forgot the Eisenberg, because that's this year's winter ship. So I still haven't fully incorporated that in my mind. And the Eisenberg is also going in C tier. I like this ship. I think it's a nice tribute to Aaron Eisenberg, but it has awkward seating. It does have a Lieutenant Commander Miracle Worker. You could put Nair sensor bands and stuff on it, but the command ensign seat isn't terribly useful, and it's just an okay ship. It doesn't rise to the level of good, in my opinion. It's just serviceable. And then, so now that we've covered winter and summer, let's go ahead and get anniversary rolling, and let's just start with the Samsara Cruiser, and that's going to go to, God, do I give it C tier? It has a command seat, but it's just saddled with way too much engineering seating. I think I'm going to give it C tier just because of the command seat, but I don't really want to. But I think the Lieutenant Commander command kind of forces my hand on that one. You can do a torpedo build with it, so I don't think any ship capable of a torpedo build, I don't think can really possibly be bad enough for D tier. Even though, generally speaking, it's not a very well-regarded ship. And then we come to, what do we do here? Let's do a two for here of two ships that I think are basically like twins in my mind. That's the Krenim Science Vessel and the Lucari Hakum, or whatever it is. They are different ships, obviously. They have differences. But they're both science ships that have a Lieutenant Commander Intel seat. And even though the seating is different, you can build them the same if you wanted to. Lieutenant Commander Intel can be good for science because you can get 2 uncon procs plus ionic turbulence, which is one of the anomalies that's triggered by spore-infused anomalies. So the intel seeding is useful on these ships, and they are science ships, and science ships in general are just decent. So they are going to get a B tier. I think they're good enough to get B tier, but there's just nothing really exciting about them. The Krenim science vessel, though, should be noted, comes with a timeline stabilizer, and in the old days, in the long ago, that was more highly prized because it gave you firing cycle haste, but it's just past its prime. Cold-Hearted has endured longer and is more relevant today, whereas I think people just aren't really looking to run timeline stabilizer anymore, so it's not really helping it get out of B tier. But one ship that will get out of B tier is the T'Pau, the Vulcan T'Pau ship. And I was sick when this came out. I was ill, and I spent Lobi, I think, to buy it out because I didn't have access to Tribble back then. So the combination of those two things made me pretty bitter about this ship. And my review of it, I think I took down because it's really awful and embarrassing, and I didn't say nice things about this ship. But in hindsight, it's a scout ship, and that's the reason why it gets A tier instead of B tier, because it also has a Lieutenant Commander Intel. I don't know why so many of these event science ships have Lieutenant Commander Intel, but they decided to do that 3 times. So it has all that going for it, but because it's a scout ship, it gets the Raider flanking, and it has all the universal seats. And so to me, those two things just are enough to elevate it another tier. Okay, let's go ahead and look at it. It's ugly, though. I happen to think that's one of the uglier ships in the game. And then let's get to the Bajorn Interceptor, and I'm going to put that in S tier because it comes with the Domino. It's a pretty decent ship on its own. I mean, it's not going to revolutionize the game or anything. It's just an okay ship. But the Domino is one of the strongest consoles in the game, so of course it has to go to S tier. And then we're going to come to the new Alliance ships. We'll start with the Kenmore Alliance Battle Cruiser, and I think I'm going to give that C tier, which seems a bit harsh. It has a Lieutenant Commander command seat, but it also has a Commander Engineering, which brings it down, and then also the way the Bridge Officer seating is, it's really hard to get science powers on it, so you're kind of forced to do aux to bat, and when you combine both of those things together, yeah, it's a serviceable ship, yeah, you can do a torpedo build on it, but it doesn't really feel great. It's a decent ship overall, but it's just, I don't think I can give it B tier. Then we get the Tamir Alliance Raider, and I very seriously considered putting this in S tier, just for performance reasons, because it's a super strong ship. It has a battle cloak, it has all the universal seating, it has command seating for torpedoes. It's a very powerful ship. Oh, my plan was to put it in A tier. But you know what? I think I'm going to put it in S tier. Even though it doesn't have a full command seat, I just, like, the performance is there. If you look at a list of, like, top performing ships, it's up there. You know, it's not going to be the first or second spot or anything like that, but it's on the short list of some of the better performing ships that anyone has gotten a record with, and I think the numbers don't lie. I mean, the performance is there. It's a strong ship. So, yeah, I think I'm going to give it S tier. That wasn't my plan when I started recording, but I've changed my mind. The Tamir is going into S tier. And then we come to the Mir Guardian Cruiser, and it's also going to get C tier. Wait, am I getting these two confused? You know what? These two are so similar, I get them confused. I can't remember which one had which problem. I think the things I said about the Kenmore Alliance Battle Cruiser apply to the Mir Guardian, but I think they both have a similar issue, which is that they both... Well, no, the Mir Guardian Cruiser has a Commander Tactical, but it doesn't have the science seating. The problem with the Kenmore Alliance Battle Cruiser was the Commander Engineering. Either way, they both have problems. I think if I had to choose one or the other, I would rather have the science seating, because I can use the engineering for uncon procs, even though it's not ideal. So maybe I'll move the Kenmore Alliance battlecruiser up. But yeah, so there's my tier list, and we'll go ahead and do a quick review. S tier, we've got the Rysian Corvette for the Soliton wave impeller. We've got the Rysian weather control vessel for the neutronic eddy console, and also the trait is pretty good too. Not good enough for S tier, but the console is. Then we got the Bajorn Interceptor for the Domino, the Tamir because it's just a really banger ship. A tier, we got the Marine Raider for Cold Hearted. We got the Fekiri Gauchtard Science Carrier because it actually happens to have a good setup for a torp build if you want to do that. And the Vulcan T'Pau because it has the Raider flanking and all the Universal seating. And the Lieutenant Commander Universal is useful enough. B tier, we got the Dreadnought Cruiser, the warships, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through each ship, but because we just did all that. But yeah, I think if you're missing any of these ships and they happen to be in the Phoenix pack or they happen to be in Mud's Market, I would look at S tier and A tier first in order to fill out your collection and to fill in your holes. And then everything after that is just sort of personal preference. And obviously the Eisenberg event is still going on, so you don't even have to pick it up that way. You can actually get it right now for free by doing the event. So thank you guys very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.